Good evening, everybody, to all those in North America and all the other continents who have downloaded this podcast. Welcome once again to the No Feed Survival Guide. My name is Mike Yankura. I go by Mike to the Y. Why? Because, well, it's my podcast. I can do whatever I want here. So, I've had some good feedback on Season 2, Episode 1, which I dropped last week in sunny Orlando, Florida at PodFest 2025. And it's gotten the juices flowing again, where hopefully I can start doing a weekly episodic podcast about just things in general. We're going to be hopefully interviewing some people who have gone through certain struggles and hopefully get some more listeners in. So, but for those who have downloaded, thank you so much. For those who thought this was maybe something about hiking or mountain climbing or something along those lines, sorry to disappoint you, but again, for those who are listening for the first time, this is the first season has mostly been autobiographical for me. It was more of a catharsis. I had done this back in 2021, did a couple in 2022, and then just last week I dropped a podcast for the first time in about 2 years. It was an absolute blast. It was to be a video podcast where you get to see this mug for whatever it's worth. But yeah, it ended up being another audio one. So until I get the means to get a camera and hopefully another Yeti microphone, which I am speaking to you now for the first time in the podcast, and hopefully you're picking up my dulcet-toned voice, as it were. So, but again, a lot of things happening. I have a LLC called Dual Amp Media, where I will be in the process of owning the podcast itself, although we're still going through the wonderful folks at Buzzsprout, who are getting me onto Spotify and some other mediums. We'll be taking a look at that, as it were. But yeah, I'll be looking to own the podcasts and do some other things. Hopefully do some voiceover work. I got a little taste of stand-up comedy while I was down at PodFest. So maybe I'll be looking for an open mic night here in the Columbus, Ohio area. So yes, back up in frigid Columbus, Ohio. My goodness, it is colder than it was in Orlando. So, but what I wanted to talk about and why I played the theme to the good, the bad, and the ugly was to talk to you about social media and what you're looking to accomplish out of social media, what I want to accomplish out of social media, and just to make it a great place to interact with people. And unfortunately, much like the advent of the internet, social media has definitely done some good and great things. It has done some bad things and some downright ugly things. Now, you may be asking yourself, you might be saying to yourself, say, self, how come Mike to the Y is talking about social media all of a sudden? What's that got to do with him being a double amputee or kidney recipient or going through the diabetes? Well, probably nothing. But my brain is still functioning, hopefully at a fairly high level. I do have at least a modicum of intelligence, and I am a proprietary, that's not the right word. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm a participant and a purveyor of social media, as I'm sure many of you are, or else you wouldn't be listening to this podcast at all. But what triggered this particular topic was something I heard yesterday, which would have been Saturday, the 25th of January, in the year of our Lord 2025. And it was by a young comedian, or a celebrity, as it were. I'm assuming she's meant to be a comedian. And her name is, and I want to make sure I get this right, Christina Kuzmic. I don't know if any of you have heard of her. I have not heard anything about her until, sometime yesterday afternoon. So, I was going through my Instagram, just scrolling through, looking to see if there's anything interesting, and I came upon Miss Kuzmic's video about some of the things that the male gender has wrote to her, just in general response or in comments on some of the videos that she plays. Now, I'll admit I haven't seen any of her other videos, so I can't tell you one way or the other if she's funny, if she's not funny, if she's profound, if she's dumber than a box of rocks. Yeah, I have no opinion on this. Other than this video, which she is dead on 100% accurate. Pardon me. And see, this is going to be part of the podcast too, so you're going to get my ers and ums, and I'm not a big fan of editing. I just like to do my stream of consciousness, so do bear with me if it distracts you in any sort of way. I hope it doesn't. And of course, I just lost my pen, so. But in any event, this particular video, I did ask for her permission to use this video on the podcast. I did not hear from her one way or the other, so what I'm going to do is basically paraphrase or try and get as succinctly as possible what was said in the video. So she did start off by saying this is a video that is inappropriate for children, so, please either send them away or pause this for later. But it was in regards to some of the comments that she received on her videos, her various videos. She's got quite a few of them. I haven't really looked. I looked at maybe 2 or 3 of them, and, okay, it is what it is. I'm, again, not rendering an opinion on her herself, but the comments that she has gotten from some men, and I'm paraphrasing the quotes. Some of these guys have said, yeah, I want to pin you down and F the S out of you. Shut your mouth and spread your legs. All you're good for is effing. And one particular comment that she had said, I'd like to meet you and have sex with you. Now, once again, these aren't in her DMs. These are in the public comments off of her videos. So, she did state that more times than not, she will delete those idiots and go on with her life. But for this particular person who said, I want to meet you and have sex with you, one of her other followers pointed out that this person has said all sorts of similar things to her in other videos. So what she decided to do was to basically out this person. Hashtag out them, she remarked at the end of the video. or in the middle of the video, I can't remember where. But anyway, hashtag out them. Basically put his picture up for everybody to see, posted the comments, and kind of give the world a view of what this person is like. Now, of course, 98% of the people who saw that particular post praised her for it. Yeah, these guys should be outed. And she also ended up getting some interesting comments, particularly from women, who said, yeah, that was nasty of them to post that, but it's also nasty of you to out them like that. And another one said, that wasn't kind at all. So this is kind of a microcosm of what social media has kind of turned out to be in a lot of ways. Now, before I get into that, let me preface this by saying that intentions are good, I would say probably 70% of the time. Meaningless, harmless photos of your family, moving into a new house, getting a car, just things that go on in your daily life. And that's cool because that's what social media was originally meant to be. It was meant to be sociable. And just as another example, I give what's called Mike's Thoughts of the Day on Facebook. And then I put those on X as well, formerly Twitter, for those of you keeping score at home. And those are usually funny, obscure, crazy comments, dad jokes for the most part, just musings I've seen online that, that would be a funny thing to put up, just to put smiles on people's faces and actually be sociable on social media. So what a lot of it has devolved into was what has happened with this Christina Kuzmic. That people just think they can get away with saying stuff like that without facing consequences. And she gave a perfect example of, you know what? You put stuff out there like that, you're going to face the consequences. Bottom line, period, end of sentence. And quite frankly, what I thought she did was terrific. There needs to be a lot more of that done, not only by men doing that, women do that too. So don't think you're completely in the clear on that, but this is an unfortunate consequence of what social media has become, and just thinking that you have that First Amendment right, which you do, but you also need to know that whatever you say, you're going to face some sort of consequences at some point. Particularly when you get into the lewdness, the sexual innuendo, I suppose, a lot of the political posts that have been put up, particularly in the last 8 years, it's mind-boggling. And to think you're just going to get away with it with people not calling you out for it. And I applaud Christina Kuzmic for this, for letting this guy know, hey, this kind of stuff isn't acceptable. And I get that. Me personally, and I was at a point even before social media where I said some crude and lewd things that were just wouldn't fly today. Or better yet, I would be categorized as something that I'm not. At least not today that I'm not. I try not to be. But, yeah, there's a lot of times I was called out for saying stupid stuff. You know, I guess the modern day version of wolf whistling is the best way I can put it. But yeah, I just don't get the mentality these days of some of these guys who, you know, put up dick pics, just say all this stuff to women who I would say for the most part are not asking for it. You know, and again, just to go on the other side of that, there are some women who use innuendos so they can kind of, well, body count isn't quite the appropriate word, but to kind of gather in all the simps, I suppose, who are going to go for that kind of stuff. And I think, you know, as far as the good, the bad, and the ugly goes with social media, the one bad thing about it, at least from my perspective, is I have a serious lack of trust going on to social media. And even as a matter of fact, I've got a serious lack of trust now with most people I interact with. You know, even face to face. You know, are they really saying what they're saying? And social media, I think, has a lot to do with that, where you're going to get a lot of people saying all sorts of stuff, and you're trying to find that hidden meaning in there. What are they really trying to say? And a lot of that has spilled over into interactions with actual human beings, you know, as far as like friendly banter or just having a plain conversation. And yeah, I'm often at a loss for words seeing some of the stuff that happens on social media. Again, this Christina Kuzmic is, what she said is more or less a microcosm of some of the stuff that people think they can say on social media. And again, a lot of that is maybe it's people venting. They have frustrations in real life, or, you know, a lot of times I kind of think this is kind of a fantasy world for them. Kind of a World of Warcraft kind of thing where they can kind of be whatever they want and think they're some sort of conquering hero where they could do whatever they want. And again, I applaud Christina Kuzmic for, you know, just basically saying, hey, wait a minute, you can't really, if that's something you can't say to their face, why would you put it on social media? And that's always one of the things I've kind of gone by as far as putting up posts or anything along those lines. Sports things, political things, just general funny things that I put up on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. So I can't even tell you about some of the other ones, but yeah, it's really a cesspool in a lot of ways, and it's kind of up to us to figure out what is not only genuine, but, you know, at least comes from a good place, and what is just plain old horse cookies. I'll put it lightly there so we can keep the podcast PG-13. I can't even begin to say some of the things that I've experienced personally just going through some of the social media. And I'll kind of give you an example here. And again, for anybody who's seen my picture, I think a stranger kind of takes a quick look at me and thinks, yeah, I'm just a simp. And for those who don't know what a simp is compared to a Chad or a Tyrone, a simp is basically short for a simpleton. That they think that any pretty girl can just come up to somebody like me and say, hey, can you carry my groceries for me? Or, hey, can you, do this favor? Can you lend me $5 or whatever to, and that was before all this. They would take one look at me and think, oh, yeah, I could get this guy wrapped around my finger in about 10 seconds. And with the advent of social media, you've got the advent of the grifter. And for those who don't know what a grifter is, the better term would be scam artist or scammer. Calling them an artist is, that's not really a thing. So, but the grifter has come along and has posed as some supermodel with big boobs or big butt or scantily clad and trying to friend me on X, formerly Twitter. So at this point right now, and I'm going to take a quick look here to tell you how many followers I have at this point and how many I think are actually real. Okay, I'm currently following 1,252 people. And that's a lot of politicians, athletes, people I find interesting that I hope are real. Just a cross following of things and shows, and so I keep a wide interest of subjects. Now, right now, I have 1,919 followers on X. And I will tell you that I've probably got 80% of that crowd since, I would say, the middle of summer last year. Because what I've decided to do is, for a lot of those fake profiles or those who actually look like regular people, I have been planting a lot of smart alecky comments. No, I'll be specific. It's smart ass comments. No doubt about it. So I put up these smart ass comments, and then I started putting some of my thoughts of the day from Facebook onto X just to have a post up. So now I've got 1,919 followers. My guess would be 1,700 of them are some sort of bot or catfishing type profile that's looking to squeeze some money out of me. And to me, that's a problem from a lot of standpoints. Not the least of which is, this is one of the reasons why I find it hard to trust anybody. Because you never know what they're going to say or what they're trying to get from you. Because I would assure you that any just about everyone I have interacted with, and again, that's not all, but I would say the vast majority of them were looking to get an Apple iCard or to have me send them $1,000 overseas or to buy into cryptocurrency, which, look, I'm not against buying cryptocurrency. If you want to buy cryptocurrency, go buy cryptocurrency. Buy it on your own, though, is what I would suggest, and not to have somebody on X try and solicit that from you, because that spells bad news in my eyes. So I have 1,919 followers. I'm guessing probably about 200 of them are actual people. And I've interacted with some of those people. And they're perfectly lovely people. And I've never had a problem with them. But again, this is a problem for both men and women, in my view. So, one of the things I've tried to do as far as being on social media, or how to judge people, I know judge lest ye be judged, but yeah, you've got to make a determination about these people. And one thing I've come up with is this person good for your soul? And again, that doesn't have to mean you have to go into some sort of heavy relationship with those you do find, but it does mean they're not looking for anything other than conversation and maybe advice once in a while, which I'm a little hesitant to give because, again, who am I? But then again, that's kind of one of the goals of this podcast is to try and help people out. This is your bit of unsolicited advice, I suppose. But yeah, is this person you're interacting with good for the soul? You know, obviously that's good for any situation. But I think the vast majority of us can tell right away if someone is good for your soul. And usually if they claim to be in America and all sorts of broken English is being typed in. Now, I'm not a purveyor of the King's English or anything like that, but I do know a proper sentence. I do know about noun-verb agreement. So, yeah, when a lot of that doesn't match, put up the red flag. And that's one of the other things I've done as a little trick is, yeah, if you got broken English or if you're not responding to my questions in a particular manner, in other words, just answering the question, they're eluding the question, is what I should say. They get a red flag. 3 red flags, you're out. So, usually you can dispel those people fairly easily. And one other thing I've found as far as putting up posts. Now, I am a big practitioner and a big believer in the First Amendment. Say what you want. Give your opinion. If you want, you can even back it up with facts or say, you know, I've got nothing but a gut feeling on this. But when people put up what is deemed to be ridiculous posts, or just something off kilter, you know, and these go particularly for our friends who put up nothing but political posts. Now, I've got conservative friends, I've got liberal friends, and just to kind of, I guess, out myself, for lack of a better term, I consider myself more of a conservative and the libertarian with a little bit of liberal thought to it. Not progressive, but liberal. There is a distinction nowadays. But in any event, I've got liberal friends, I've got conservative friends. When liberal friends put out things that, well, just put out things that I don't agree with, more times than not, I let it slide. And I think a lot of people who have friends on both sides of the political spectrum do the same thing. I never got the gist of putting up just political posts or 90% political posts. You know, I put up a political post maybe 4 times a year at best. And I would say out of those, I put up at least 300 posts a year. And that's probably being conservative, to be quite honest, because I do a rest in peace for celebrities that have passed or friends that have passed. And then I put up Mike's Thought of the Day or Mike's Convo of the Day, something I picked up from some other source. So, and for those of you looking to call me out on that, I never said it was Mike's original thought of the day. But it's always a funny thing to put up. So, again, to make social media sociable. So, something happened yesterday. Well, it actually stems back from Tuesday, I believe, which was the day after President Trump's inauguration. And yes, I voted for Trump. So you can say whatever you like about that. That's fine by me. I know when somebody's being railroaded. I'll put it that way. And all they did was make Trump a political martyr. So that's one of the big reasons why he won. Of course, it didn't hurt that there was a terrible candidate going up against him, but that's another subject for another time. So anyway, I believe it was either Tuesday or Wednesday, I had put up a rare political post. And it was called An Open Letter to Donald Trump. And I am going to read that to you word for word now, so that make sure I don't get misconstrued about anything here. So, my open letter to President Trump. Congratulations on your victory and wish you the best in moving our nation forward. I would like to offer 2 suggestions for you to propose, and both have to do with amendments to the Constitution. Number 1, term limits for Congress. Long overdue. It's time to finally get the Nancy Pelosi's and Mitch McConnell's of the world out to pasture. A 12-year max, 6 terms for the House, 2 terms for the Senate, with no 12 years in each chamber. 12 years and you're done. And yes, I do realize in execution this is a nearly impossible task because it has to go through Congress first. However, the proposal by you can plant the seed and shows a true sign of wanting to drain the swamp. Number 2, repeal the 16th Amendment in favor of a sales tax amendment. So, for those of you who worry about what the 16th Amendment is, that is the income tax amendment passed in 1913. Income tax has become antiquated, particularly in the past 10 years. More importantly, way too many loopholes have been created so that certain people can skate around the law. Every last person buys stuff. Now, I would propose no sales tax for items under, say, $50, just as an example. But this way, nobody has a reason to bitch about the elite not paying their fair share, and makes collecting a heck of a lot easier. So if you get a chance to read this, again, to President Trump, please consider my suggestions. Do what you can to keep making the greatest country in all history. Keep making this the greatest country in all history. Missed a word. Sue me. Thank you. And that was my post. That was it. So, what had happened yesterday, a liberal friend of mine, and I'm going to out his name, Gary Maher, M-A-H-E-R, decided to not render an opinion about what I posted. He rather said, well, what about the cancer research? People are dying out there. To which my response was, what does this have to do with my post? In which he went on to basically say what a horrible, evil person President Trump is, and saying that this is an important issue, yada, yada, yada. And my two responses to that were, you put it on your page if you're so concerned about it, and 2, seek help. Because, quite frankly, there are just certain people there who aren't going to, they've got blinders on. And for those of you who think that is just on the liberal side or on the conservative side, you are sadly mistaken, my friends. It is happening on both sides. And, you know, again, I would have respected him a lot more if he would have just said, hey, I like that idea. Yes, that should be proposed. Or, hey, I don't like that idea. And then we can have a discussion about it. It's literally as simple as that. So, he basically, after I said seek help, he goes, about what? Because I gave facts? So he has become the purveyor of facts, ladies and gentlemen. So, if you're on Facebook and you need to look up facts, just ask Gary Maher, because he is by far, you know, the key holder, the fact checker, the purveyor, the overseer of facts. So anyway, I put up a separate reply, and it says thus, and let me expand that out so I have the whole gist of it. For all my liberal friends out there, I was making suggestions that President Trump may not have considered. If you look at the comment above, which was Gary Maher's, you'll see someone who is just unhinged about something that may or may not be happening. And my guess is he's talking about research, canceling research, cancer research from the government. Why can't it be privatized, first of all, where grants can be awarded for cancer research? But my bigger question to that is, if these big pharma companies were so quick to make a COVID vaccine, why can't they make a cure for cancer? And if you think about it, I think you may know the answer why. I wish this was a video so I could hold up a dollar sign for you. So anyway, if you look at the comment above, you'll see someone who is just unhinged about something that may or may not be happening. The rhetoric is nothing short of astonishing. I only play that game for so long. And again, I don't respond much to political posts on either side, other than to say, hey, I voted for Trump. This is why I voted for Trump. And, that's about the extent of it. So if you're going to try and outsmart me on my rare political posts, my suggestion is to stay in your lane. If you have an opinion on my post, let's discuss and debate. I'm ready to defend my position. When you reply about something else, then put it on your page and have everyone else validate you so that you can feed your ego. And for those of you who are about to respond, well, why are you putting up things that get validated and satisfy your ego? And you're not wrong. And pretty much anybody who puts anything up wants that validation. That's why we have social media. I'm looking to make people laugh and, hey, follow me. He's got find some funny stuff on there. That's part of my ego and part of my validation. When you don't recognize it, that becomes a narcissistic thing, that you seek and crave validation. I like the validation. I don't need it. I can stay off Facebook for a month, standing on my head. I'll look at other people's stuff, but I don't have to put a darn thing up. And then people start wondering, why haven't you been putting stuff up? Well, that's how it goes sometimes. So, I want to read a response to that last post from my wonderful cousin Pam, who goes, Mike, I totally have had similar experiences. I actually answered liberal teachers by reminding them that the new administration allows all people to have freedom of speech again. No more pulling posts or kicking people off or canceling people, so they can celebrate, but to also know that it's a two-way street now. I'm glad you stopped him. He was way off his kilter. Stay warm. Well, thank you, Pam, for that. And I will say, again, I'm not going to speak to people going to Facebook jail or Twitter jail for things they put up, because I can probably count them on one hand. I've been admonished a couple of times for things on Instagram or on Facebook, and you know what? That's part of the course. And I think we need that freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, but also learn the flip side of it. If you're going to say something that's not kosher with other people, you're going to get called out for it. And you better be ready to defend your position. Just saying that you have the facts and you're the only one with the facts, that doesn't cut it anymore. Again, I would have respected him a lot more if he would have just gave his opinion on what I wrote and not go off on some tangent. And that's the other thing that I try and tell myself whenever I post something or put a reply or reply to a reply. What, if anything, have you accomplished? And that is my mantra going forward, and I would say 95% of the time that was my mantra in putting up posts on social media. What does it accomplish? And the example was this post that I put up regarding term limits for Congress and abolishing the 16th Amendment in favor of a sales tax. It's a suggestion. It's an opinion. And my accomplishment out there was getting it out there and kind of planting the seed. Say, hey, that's not a bad idea, or, oh, that's just so silly, I'm not even going to address that. That's fine. That's absolutely fine by me. It's when you go off topic that really kind of irritates me, and then I'm going to call you out on it. So that has been that. What is good about social media? I'll tell you, just all the friends that I have made over social media and meeting some of them in person has just been a great validation for me to be on here. And I think that goes for a lot of you too. That you've met people that you normally would not have met. And that is such a great thing. One thing we do or should keep in mind as far as social media is the first word, social. We should all be social. If we disagree on somebody's politics or somebody's opinion on, pick a topic, just say, hey, I disagree. Here's why I disagree. And not getting into the name calling. And then as far as some of these bozos who can't help themselves, their libido is just way off kilter. You got to find some sort of outlet. And I wish I knew what it was. But it's obviously not porn, because I think a lot of these guys watch porn and they think, oh, I could just translate this into real life with some, good-looking girl that, hey, why don't you bend over and I'll do this to you, blah, 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 blah. Which kind of brings me up to another evil, because once again, these guys are simps, and a lot of them get to flock over to a lovely thing called OnlyFans. Oh, where do I begin with that? I mean, it is just, I don't even want to think about who I know may be on there. And the fact that all these young women, and I'm sure young guys, and believe me, somebody had tried to convince me to go on OnlyFans because of my amputations. Oh, there's a real niche for guys who've got stumps, and you could do this or do that. And I'm like, boy, that sounds like a lot of money, but yeah, I think I want to keep my soul intact. Thanks very much. And I think that's what has happened to a lot of these young ladies or older ladies who basically convince their family or mostly themselves, that they're going to make this boatload of money and they're just going to be, life's going to be so great with all this money. And yeah, they probably like the little power they have over these simps. And, where these guys get this money from, how it ends up being that some of these people are making $10,000, $20,000, however many hundreds of thousands a month. just by exploiting their bodies. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And it's just, unfortunately, to me, it's a form of prostitution. And that is a difficult thing for anybody. I don't care if you're on the streets or in front of a camera. That is a tough thing to get out of. But it can be done. I mean, but again, this is some of the ugly that goes on, because I consider OnlyFans social media. It's just, I just feel so sorry for those people, not only for the quote-unquote entertainers, but for those that watch them, and watch them on a regular basis, and are forking over hundreds of dollars, whatever, every week or every month. It's just not, it just doesn't sit right with me. And, unfortunately, this is part of the dark side of the First Amendment, is, boy, you'd love nothing better than to ban such things and erase it from the earth, and, which I'll get into the TikTok in a second here. But, yeah, it's one of the unfortunate sides of the First Amendment. But again, when you get that free speech and you're displaying your body and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, there's consequences to be paid. If you're looking for any sort of genuine, real relationship, you're going to have a tough time. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. Because basically, your body has been displayed for the world to see. And getting a genuine guy to oversee or look past that, I mean, that's going to be a challenge and a half. And somebody's going to have just, just a real tough exterior for that. And, I've seen examples of that on Twitter, now X, where people are just, hey, come to my OnlyFans page, or this page, or that page, and yeah, it'll be worth your money. No, it's not. It's not only is it not going to be worth my money, but you damage your soul. And it goes back to the first point, is this good for my soul? Or even if I cave into that, is that good for the other person's soul? I'd like to say I'm doing them a favor by doing that, but honestly, they're only seeing the money and the control they have at this point, and not actually worrying about other human beings. So, and which brings me to the wonderful social platform of TikTok, which, as you know, it was banned for about 12 hours or so. And this is something I don't agree with. I think it should be kept up. I think that, once again, hopefully, all of you listening out there, and myself, and all my friends and family, that we have enough of a moral compass to sift away the 90% gunk that's on TikTok, and then go with the 10% that's either neutral or positive. So, all in all, the internet and social media have been probably two of the greatest inventions in the last 50 years. But with that invention comes human flaws and human errors. We're all a victim of it. I'm a victim of it. I've been a victim of it. All of you listening have been victims of it. But the best advice I can give to you is to ask yourself a couple questions before you type that first letter of your post, of your reply, whatever you're putting up, or even the picture. One, is it good for my soul? And I think you'll find that there's a lot of it out there that does not conduce with having a good soul. And from that, you can stem from it, is it good for the other person's soul? And again, I've been guilty of perhaps damaging that. I won't know until I'm gone from this world. But for those who are damaging their souls by not critically thinking about politics, not thinking about what religion you make fun of, putting your body exposed to the world. Is that doing good for your soul? And then the other thing I would say is, what does this accomplish? What does it accomplish? Is it meant to get a laugh? Is it meant to have people think? Is it meant to have people stirred so much that they cry? And that's one of the things that's really important in life. Jimmy Valvano, the former coach at NC State, who had sadly passed away from cancer, had received an honorary ESPY. And one of the things he said in his most memorable speech was, 3 things you should do every day is laugh, cry, and think. If your post, if your picture accomplishes one of those things, then you're doing pretty good. If it's not hurting your soul, that's gravy on top of the potatoes. And hopefully, this will get you to think a little bit. This podcast about social media and how to get through all the muck is basically the bottom line. And I know there's good people out there. I think the vast majority of people are good. Perhaps to my naivete. But I think if you think about those 2 things, is it good for my soul? Is it good for somebody else's soul? And then what does it accomplish? That to me is some of the greatest stuff you can do while being on social media. So I want to thank you guys for listening to the podcast, the good, the bad, and the ugly of social media. Once again, my name is Mike to the Y. If you want to email me with your opinion of the podcast, I am working on getting a website developed for the company, but in the meantime, you can email me as I lower this down a little bit. You can email me at Mike to the Y, that's MIKETOTHE, the letter Y, Mike to the Y at gmail.com. Put no feet in the subject line so I'll know who I'm speaking with. And you never know, and the next one might be reading your email on the air. And then in the meantime, we'll be looking for guests who have survived in their own way. So, if you say dealt with alcoholism and are sober now, if you've gone through some sort of health crisis and are thriving, if you've been a victim of some sort of crime and you kind of turn that adversity into something positive, please let me know. And I'd love to interview you. Once again, that's Mike to the Y at gmail.com. I want to thank you guys for listening and hopefully keep the downloads going. If you like the podcast, as I always like to say to my trivia peeps, or when I'm directing a show in community theater, if you like what you hear, please tell everybody you know. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend, tell family, tell strangers you meet on the street. And if you didn't like this podcast, keep it to yourself. And remember, as always, be that surprise onion ring in somebody's french fries. Thank you guys. Have a good night.